Good morning, everybody. I am super duper excited about today's workshop. I am so proud and so happy that we have a pilot on board with us to lead the workshop. And I'm so happy and so elated that she's a female pilot. You know, I guess about 6 months ago to a year ago, there was a major announcement in the US, in the United States, that there was an all female flight crew flying a major airline. And it was just a moment of joy and gratitude. I have two daughters who are super duper women, and I certainly celebrate and do everything possible to highlight and celebrate women who are awesome at what they do. To see a female pilot means so much to Green Springs School. You know, in no time at all, we'll be opening our air and sea laboratories. So everything there is to know about the air, including flight, including drones, including how to become a pilot, air traffic control, hot air balloons, everything associated with the air and everything associated with water, marine biology, shipping, all those types of things. We'll be studying those things because those are known as the blue economies. And so today, I want to welcome on behalf of Mrs. Quakey and myself and all of the senior leaders at the school, and on behalf of all the teachers, students, and the rest of the administration, a warm welcome to our speaker today, and a big bravo and big thanks to our College, University, and Career Readiness Center. We're one of the only schools in Nigeria that have a center like we have, and we have great centers on both campuses, at Lekki and at Anthony. And so on behalf of everyone, I'm looking forward to listening today and learning a lot. And so I'm excited and welcome on behalf of Green Springs School. I know you're going to be fantastic. We're all ears and excited about what you have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wilson. Okay, I'd like to introduce Mrs. Atunuke Stanley Pupil, and she phenomenally works as both a lawyer and commercial airline pilot. In her younger years, Mrs. Stanley Pupil attended Vivian Fowler Memorial College for Girls. On completion of her secondary education, she studied law at Igbinedion University and went on to law school at the Nigerian Law School, Enugu State. Mrs. Stanley Pupil developed a love for aviation and channeled this interest by attending both the Canadian Flight Academy in Ontario, Canada, and the International Aviation College, Ilorin. Mrs. Stanley Pupil joins an admirable line of leaders in her family. Her father, brother, and sisters are also pilots. Prior to her current engagement as first officer with the prestigious airline Aero Contractors, where she has been for 3 years, Mrs. Stanley Pupil was a dedicated staff at two law firms, AAA Chambers and Ikwazu and Co. She has been successful in combining both professions, lawyer and pilot, and welcomes opportunities in both fields. When she's not flying or solving legal cases, Mrs. Stanley Pupil can be found reading or engaging in projects to impact the youth. She is currently working on an online academy for the youth. Welcome, Mrs. Atunuke Stanley Pupil.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for this great opportunity to speak to the youth. I mean, behind all of those great words that were shared, it's really my passion and genuine hunger to see the youth fulfill their purpose in life. And that is why when the opportunity came, I grabbed it. So thank you so much for that very warm welcome. And it's good to have, I can't see everybody, but it's definitely good to have everybody who is on board today. I'll go right into it. Today, I'll be talking about becoming a pilot, my road to success. I want us to have this at the back of our heads today. I mean, I'll be using my example and the whole idea is to inspire you to be who you're destined to be. I'm going to use my journey, but I just want everybody's journey in life isn't the same, but I want it to be like an example, something that you can use to, you know, start putting things in order for yourself. I'm very proud of Green Springs, that they thought the need to have things like this at this crucial time. I wish I had this opportunity. I definitely didn't have that. The time that I had to make that decision was way further in my educational background. So, I mean, this is definitely the right time to equip the youths in making their career decisions. So I'll start with my goal and vision for today. Primarily, I want us to have clarity on making our career decisions. Now, I know that I am a pilot, I have a background in law, but this also pertains to other professions. It's not limited to becoming a pilot. I want us to have a very good understanding of the importance of knowing your purpose in life. Now, the career is just an opportunity to share who you are or who you're meant to be in life. It is not just, oh, I wake up and I go to work. It's the lives that are impacted, the industries that are impacted, how you're able to fulfill your purpose in a certain industry. And that only happens when you're very clear with what your vision in life is, you know. And essentially, I want us to be encouraged. I know these are not the most encouraging times, but regardless, you have to find encouragement, whatever is happening around the world. I want us to be motivated and driven to fulfill our purpose. And this is very important because we are the leaders of tomorrow. Now, before you know it, 10, 15 years are going to go down. And whatever decisions you make now, those are the decisions that are going to lead your life tomorrow. So you say, oh, 10, I have a lot of time, 10 years, 15 years. That's what I was saying 10 years ago. And if I made the wrong decisions, I wouldn't be here in this uniform speaking to you. Yesterday, I had a flight and I almost started getting emotional. There was a fighter pilot plane coming into Abuja, and I had just landed Abuja. And I remembered the point in my life that really made, and I'm going to talk about that today. Really, that was the deciding point to who I am today. I was holding back tears because I didn't want to get emotional in the cockpit, but it just flashed into my head that it was one of those days when we had a talk like this in school. In my case, it was while I was in the university. I had already started studying law, and we had a career. Well, it wasn't really a career day per se. So what they had, I mean, you guys are very lucky, trust me. But what we had was a convocation ceremony. So they would invite, you know, a guest speaker. And I usually didn't used to. I'm sure a lot of people will be like, oh, that's not important to me, you know, but I didn't usually go for things like that. But for some reason, I saw the person who was going to be the guest speaker. I was at the time Air Vice Marshal Paul Dickey, and I got really excited. I was like, oh, I told my friends, I got into my breast white shirts and black skirts, you know, and then I was sitting right in front and I was listening to everything the man had to say. And I called my dad immediately after that. I said, I want to become an Air Force pilot. And he said, okay, no problems. I'm sure he was thinking, okay, you're still in school studying law, so where is this coming from? And I said, this is what I wanted to do. And, you know, he said, okay, no problems. When I get back home, we'll talk about it. So I had finished studying in school at uni, and then I went to law school. And I'm telling you this because the journey was a very interesting journey, but, you know, this is where I am today. After that career, well, after I had spoken to my dad and he told me, okay, no problems, when you get home, we'll talk about it. We didn't talk too much about it. Like he heard, okay, this is what I would like to be, but we didn't take any decisions yet. So I went to law school, and just after law school, he called me again and said, okay, so what's the plan? What do you want to do now? And a lot of my friends then were saying, oh, they want to go and get their master's degree. And I said, okay, why not? Why I want to go and get my master's degree? I don't want to be left out. You know, all my friends are going to get masters. And he said, okay, what about you deciding to become a pilot? Do you want to do that? And I was like, okay, you know what? This is still on board. Fine, no problems. And that's how my journey started. So I'm giving you a little background to how this journey started. I know in the introduction you heard that my dad's a pilot, my brother is a pilot, my sister is a pilot, and coincidentally, my husband is a pilot. But what's more important is, and I was thinking about that before coming on board today. Now, whatever you want to become in future, it's important to know that there are already people doing that. Now, in my case, my family, majority of my family, apart from my mom and my sister, are in the industry. And this industry is quite competitive. You have to be an excellent person. There's no room for mistake. I don't know if you heard, unfortunately, we had an air crash yesterday. I got back home, called my husband and asked him if he was okay because he wasn't back from flight. And he said, oh, yes, he's fine. But I said, you know what happened? Initially, I was in Abuja and somebody declared an emergency. Now, I'm not saying this to scare you, but I'm telling you to prepare your mind that this industry is not for fun. Whoever decides after this talk today that this is what they want to do must understand the importance of putting your very best at every single time that you have to perform your duties. Like I said yesterday, I was at Abuja, and coming into land Abuja, somebody declared an emergency. And in my head, coincidentally, I don't say this again to scare you, we had an air crash in February. One of the pilots was my friend. He was in the Air Force and we finished our, training together. This was a good pilot, trust me. But I had landed in Abuja and we were watching this plane come into land after declaring emergency. And at the back of my head, I'm thinking, what is he thinking? I told the captain, his voice has gone very low because I can only imagine what he's thinking now. As God will have it, he landed safely. And, I thought that was the end of the day, only for me to come back and see it on the news that another plane had crashed in Kaduna. And then I had a talk with my captain and she said, this is why we demand of you excellence at all times. Now I'm saying this again because I don't know your educational history, and I think it's important to say this. I believe that every student is excellent. I don't care what your results are at this point in time, but I believe strongly that there is excellence in you. And I'm not saying this to make you feel better of yourself. I'm saying this to make you realize that that is what you really are. But you have to take a personal decision. You have to take the responsibility. You have to be disciplined at all times to ensure that the world sees that excellence. Like I said again yesterday, after the crash, I called a couple of my friends and coincidentally, we had talked about the plane, the emergency landing in Abuja, and he said something that I want to mention here. He said that there's a lot of luck that has to play. A lot of us believe in luck and opportunities that come as a result of luck. But if luck does come and you do not have that knowledge, you've lost your luck. And anything that happens then, it's on you. What that means is that in as much as you're in school, the school can only do so much. So now the school has given you this opportunity to, hear about making career decisions, but the responsibility still lies on you. Your parents have made the decision to give you this wonderful opportunity in a great school. Green Springs is one of the schools, to be honest with you, right from time when I was in high school, Green Springs has always had very high standards. So you cannot say that you do not have the opportunities, the tools and resources. Whatever now you make that decision with, whatever you choose to do with this information and decisions going forward is on you. So I want at the end of this career series, I do not know what other careers that will be discussed, but I want you to take full responsibility that you're going to use this for your best. On the slide, we have my background and history. My profile spoke a lot about that, so I'm not going to bore you with that. But primarily, I went to high school in Vivian Fowler Memorial College for Girls, an all-girls school, coincidentally. And after that, I went to, okay, I'll tell you about that, good. So while I was in high school, my dad kept on asking me what I wanted to become in future. He knew what he wanted to become by 11 years old. I didn't know, to be honest with you. So if you're still not clear, that's fine. I didn't know what I wanted to be, but I was talking to my friends one day in the hostel, and one of them said, oh, I want to become a lawyer because I want to be able to defend people. And I was like, wait, okay, that sounds like something that I want to do, because I didn't like to see people treated unfairly. Like I would literally want to defend that person, you know, if I just saw people being treated unfairly. So I said, okay, you know what, this is what I really want to be. And that's where I got my inspiration to become a lawyer. Now, I'm sharing that as well because a lot of people feel like they need to wake up or, you know, have known what they want to become from birth. And that's not essentially true. A lot of us have a lot of talents, you know. Some of us are very clear head on from the get-go, and some of us, the vision gets clearer as the journey goes. So for me, that's how my career journey started. Like I said, my friend had said that, and that struck a chord in me, and that's how my journey began. After high school, I went to study law in Venedian University, Okada, and it was in my fourth year. It's a 5-year course. In my fourth year in the university, when we had that career, well, not the career talk, but the talk where the Air Vice Marshal Paul Dike came and spoke to us, and I decided I wanted to join the Air Force. But like I said earlier, I finished that, and then I went to law school, which was another extra year after the 5 years in Agbani. And then after that, I started my flight training school. Okay, so I did my flying school in Canada, and I also did it in Ilorin, Nigeria. So that's like my educational background. Now, some questions I want us to ask ourselves while we're having this. I want you to ask yourself, what do you like doing? Before I go further down into becoming a pilot, what is it that you like to do? Who do you most likely want to be like? Are there people that you see that inspire you? You know, it just strikes something in you. You can't explain the feeling, but when you see that person, you just feel passionate about, you know, what the person is doing. What do you enjoy doing without being told to do so? What do you find that you just naturally gravitate towards? What do people most come to you for? So in addition to, like I said, the law and the flying, while I was in school, coincidentally, whenever we had, in high school precisely, whenever we had, I wouldn't say conflict, but issues in class, the person they would tend to come to me to speak was me, because I always had this, and it's funny how that has played out to become me speaking to people, but I would always have, you know, the word of advice or the right thing to say per se, you know, whenever there were issues amongst us. So I found my friends and age mates calling me their mother, because I would always be the one to say, oh no, you don't do this, don't do that. That was just me naturally. So it doesn't surprise me that today that's what I'm doing. And then the last question I want you to ask yourself is what you are most known for. So if people were to speak about you or your friends, you know, your family members, what would they say that you're most known for? So I want you to have answers to these questions. I'm not just asking you, and then we'll get back to that shortly. Well, now in regards to the next slide here, I have choosing to become a pilot. So after all those questions, you now say, oh, what I want to do is become a pilot. Now, what kind of pilot do you want to become? We have two types of pilots generally. We have pilots who are in the military, and we have civil pilots. So like I said initially, I wanted to join the Air Force, so that would have made me a military pilot. But today I am a civil pilot, a commercial pilot, and I'll tell you why. One of the reasons why is because of what has happened recently. I mean, a lot of people have passed on. I know I have purpose. I know I have a mission to, and that's not to belittle the purpose of any other person, but I always knew that the only thing that stopped me from joining the Air Force was I didn't like war. So if I knew that if they called me to go for combat, I don't know if I could do that. You know, I just couldn't stomach it. And that was why I decided to become a civil pilot. But that doesn't stop you. If you have the balls for it, definitely go for it. Like I have, I was going to share a video initially, but the video is about two female pilots. One is she's the first female pilot, fighter jet, and the other one is a helicopter pilot. But they are both very young. They're in their early 20s, actually. very young pilots, but they're doing very well. They have their drive, they are not afraid of war, and it works very well for them. But like I said, we have two types of pilots. We have those in the military and we have the civil pilots. So I'll talk a little bit about the military and then I'll go a little more into civil. So to become a military pilot, the advantages, I'll talk about the advantages. For example, if you decide in Nigeria that you want to become a pilot in the military, the advantages are that the government is going to pay for your training. Now, the flight training does cost a lot of money, a fair amount of money, I would say. It's quite an investment. But if you decide to go through the Air Force, for example, the government will pay for your training. So, and the thing about the training is not just your initial training as far as education, it's also type rating. So a type rating is an additional, so for example, I'll use a driver's license. A driver's license allows you to drive a car. But for you to drive like a truck, you would need an additional training. So a type rating basically allows you to fly other aircrafts other than what you used to train. So when the training does come, what you would normally use is either a two-seater or a four-seater. In my case, I used a two and a four-seater. I used the Cessna 152, Cessna 172, Diamond 40, and Diamond 42. I also flew a Piper Aztec. Fancy names. It's just like saying Toyota and Mercedes-Benz, not a big deal. But yes, those were the aircrafts I started with. But now what I fly is a Boeing 737 Classic. It's regularly 130, 20 plus passengers. Primarily it's 100 and some 120 to 30 passenger seating. So now I will take you back to training. So training, like I said, it was a two-seater, four-seater, and then now what I'm flying is 120 to 130 plus seating for passengers. And that is why I said it is very, very important that you take whatever you're doing right now and in general very seriously, because you have the lives of people in your hands. They have family members, they have loved ones, they have people that they want to come home to. So whatever you're doing, whatever you need to do excellently well. The next slide here I have are the requirements to become a pilot. So the first thing is the passion. So I don't want you to just say, oh, I want to be a pilot because I just want to be a pilot. Do you have the passion for it? And how do you know that you have passion? So passion is a very strong yearning to do something. You just want to do it. You can't explain where that feeling comes from, but it could be seeing the person in the uniform and, oh, I want to wear that uniform one day. It might be watching the planes take off and land and say, oh, wow, I want to be able to be the person behind the controls that does that. So it's essential that whatever career you decide to take on, you have a passion for it. Now, another reason why it's essential to have the passion is the passion helps you to overcome the inevitable challenges. So it's very easy for me to come today, in my uniform with my epaulets and my tie. This is what is called an epaulet. With my epaulets and my tie, and talk to you about becoming a pilot. But trust me, they were challenges. And now those challenges vary from person to person. I know some people have challenges with financing. Some people, I don't know if you all remember. I want you to say yes if you do. If you did watch Big Brother, Miracle Ibokwe, who was a pilot, he started his pilot. Good, awesome. So I met, coincidentally, we're in the hostel together. And I'm going to say this because it's not private, it's not secret, it's not private knowledge that everybody kind of has. So coincidentally, Miracle and I met in school while in Ilorin. He was in Ilorin as well. We're next door neighbors in the hostel. And the first I got into Ilorin, I saw Miracle, and he was such an excited person. He was very passionate. And the interesting thing about his journey is that he didn't start off as a pilot. He always wanted to become a pilot, but he didn't start there. And then he, like most of us know, he went for brother, and he was able to get the finances needed for him to finish his training, and he has finished his training now. I say this because everybody's journey is very different, and there are challenges. So there's some people who have challenges when it comes to learning. So you may have the passion for becoming a pilot, but the knowledge per se. So for example, in my case, I had a law background, so I wasn't in science class. And that's one of the things I want to point out now. One of the requirements is that you need to have a high school education. So for example, I'll speak about my dad. He went straight from high school to become a pilot. Straight from high school, he became a pilot. In my case, I went from high school, I went to study law, went to law school, and then I became a pilot. My journey was definitely clearly different from his. But the challenges may differ because somebody who is more science, and that the thing about becoming a pilot, you don't have have a science degree. If you do, it's a plus. If you do, it's a plus. I'm going to be honest with you. It's a plus because a lot of things are, like, for example, I started studying about Newton's third law when I started my flight training. There's some basic science things that we come into play with. Definitely a fair understanding of maths. You don't have to be a guru, but you need to know how to add and subtract and multiply, as the case may be. You have to be excellent. So there's no room for mistake because you're going to be doing calculations and imputations of things like cargo and fuel. And if you do under-calculate or over-calculate, that can affect positively or negatively the effect of your flight. So for example, if for your flight, you need to carry 17,500 pounds, for example, of fuel, and you make a mistake, you're distracted or your maths isn't really good, and then you put 22,000 pounds, and then your aircraft is overweight, the performance of the aircraft is greatly impacted. So in cases like that, that is where you need to be really good at, what you're doing. You need to be clear on your mathematics. I mean, it's usually plus and minus for the main majority of it. You don't have to, use Pythagoras theorem or anything fancy, but your fair understanding of maths is very important. Another requirement, so I said the first requirement is a passion for flight. The second one, you must have a high school education. So it's good that you're in school right now. And you must be able to read, write, and speak English proficiently. So we have an English proficiency test that because English is the general language for aviation, apart from, words where we say Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, that's still English, right? So you have to be proficient in English, not like an excellent, I mean, excellent is good, but you don't have to know it at a genius level, but be able to speak, read, and write English very well. The next thing here is your medical certification. So we do medicals so it depends on your license, but we do medical tests every now and then. It is good that you don't drink, smoke. I will put it in here now. We do, sometimes there are spontaneous tests that are carried out because you do not want a pilot, to be under the influence of either drugs or alcohol. So I would like to add this here, that it is good that you make those decisions now, that you are not going to ever, do that. But it is important that the pilot is never under the influence of drugs and alcohol. So we do spontaneous tests. And if these substances are found, you could lose your license or be made to pay a major fine. But the medical certification here is in regards to your ability to hear, see well, and then your general health. So there would be like an ECG to check your heart if you were under pressure and how you could handle that as well. So your hearing, because you'll be speaking and hearing from the radios, from the towers, during your flight. So you need to be able to hear very well. You need to see. You can use your glasses if you do use glasses right now. It doesn't have to be 20/20 vision for the commercial, but I understand in the US, if you were to join the Air Force, you wouldn't be, if you didn't have 20/20, you wouldn't be able to join the Air Force, because I understand that they do not allow the use of glasses. But for the civil pilots, we can. If you use glasses, it's fine, but you just have to ensure that you have a spare, just in case anything happens to that. The last thing here I have for the requirements is you may apply from the age of 17. I've seen cases where people apply earlier, but the truth is that you can't get the license until you're 18. So if you are already 18 here, you can get your license if you're already 18. If you're not 18, if you're close to 18, you can start your training. So say, for example, you're 17, you can start the training, but you wouldn't be given your license until you're the age of 18. So if you're 18, you can definitely become a pilot. I'll move to my next slide, sorry. Awesome. So the next thing I have here is flying school, licenses, and training. So the first thing I'll talk about is duration of the who finish trainings in shorter times than I'm going to mention. The people who have finished training, and I mean, it depends on of the schools, the school you choose, and the weather. I said earlier, and I think it's actually good that I had the experience that I did. I went to Canada, and if you know one thing about Canada is that it's very cold, and we do have seasons. So unlike where we have the wet and dry seasons in Nigeria, we summer, winter, autumn, and so in winter, the flyings are limited to what we do. So if the weather is bad, like if it's a very day, we can take off. And it depends on the exercise that we're to carry out. That you're deciding where you want to do your flight training, put into consideration. So the major places that the trainings take place, America is very popular for trainings. The reason why is one, their syllabus seems a lot easier. I'll explain why. So we do have tests that we have to take. And the tests in America, they have a book of questions it's a bank of questions where, questions for those tests are selected from. In Canada, we do have tests, but there's no bank of questions. We have in the US, we have trainings in Canada, we have trainings in South Africa. South Africa is a lot tougher. I did one of my trainings, so not my flight training per se, my type rating initial, when I was learning to fly the Boeing 737 Classic in South Africa. It's a bit tougher. It's a lot tougher, to be honest, between America and Canada. But I think it's one of the ones that I respected, because they say you were able to go through such a tough training, so you must know your stuff. And then, of course, we have Nigeria. Now, that's not to say that other countries outside these four major countries that I have mentioned do not offer trainings, but these are the popularly known places. So, for example, in America, we have a lot of training that goes on in Florida, and I think that's because of the weather. One of the schools, I don't know if I should mention the schools, I'll wait till you have questions, but we have a lot of training facilities and a lot of people from Nigeria who actually go to Florida. And then in Canada, we have a lot of people that go to Ontario. I went to Ontario. And then we have South Africa. And of course, in Nigeria, we have the Nigerian Civil Aviation, and it's called NCAT Zaria. And we have IC Ilorin, so International Aviation College, Ilorin, Kwara State, which is the one I went to. So that the duration, good. So We have flying schools and flying clubs. I would strongly suggest that you go to a flying school because most schools have structure. If you're in a club, it's more for people who, and that's not to say people who are busy can't go to flying schools, but if there's a syllabus and a fixed duration, it's easier if you stick to a school. But in a club, it's more for people who are busy and it's more flexible, you know. The duration, like I said, it varies, but on average, it could run from 1 year, 6 months to 2 years. You could definitely finish in less time than that, but from start to finish, as far as your major training is concerned, it's between 1 year to 1 year, 6 months to 2 years. And during this duration, it's called the PPL, the Private Pilot's License. On that pilot's license, you get a student pilot's license, and in the student's pilot's license, that would be when you solo. So there was one of these exercises. After that is the licenses. So the first license is the PPL, the private pilot's license. And under the private pilot's license, we have the student pilot license. And during the training of that license, when you have to go solo. So basically, going solo means that you take off on a small aircraft, like a Cessna 152, which is a two-seater. You'll be the only one in that aircraft. You take off on a runway. You do a circuit. So a circuit is like flying because of a rectangle. So you take off and go downwind, come back, and then land. This would usually take about 10 to 15 minutes, but they want to know that you have the confidence and the ability to take off a small plane and land it by yourself. The reason why is that during the course of the training, you'd also be doing other solo flights to other cities around you for your time build. It's called solo time building. And in that solo time building, you could either go to practice areas to do some maneuvers, or you could fly to various states. So I'll use Lagos for an example. We don't do trainings out of Lagos because the majority of the airlines take off from here and it's quite busy. So, but if we did, for example, you'll be going to places like Ibadan and neighboring places for your training. So you take off, you will go to the next. So we used to go to Ibadan while I was in my training in Nigeria and land there and then take off and go back to Ilorin. So that's an example of some of the exercises you'll be doing during your PPL. The next license is your CPL, Commercial Pilot's License. This license enables you to be paid to fly. Now, if you stop at the PPL, that means you can only fly yourself. So some people do it as a hobby. They just take off and land for fun. But if you want to be able to earn a living from becoming a pilot, you would have to have the Commercial Pilot's License. After that, you will have a multi-engine license, which enables you to fly an aircraft with more than one engine. So you will definitely start with an aircraft that has one engine, and as you proceed, move to two, as the case may be. And then they have the instrument rating. So this is not a license, it's an additional rating to your license, and it enables you to fly in weather that isn't so. If you have clouds, for example, you can't make visual reference to the ground. The instruments rating enables you to fly, so you would only be using your instruments in the cockpit as reference. And then if you say you like to teach people and you want to teach people to become pilots as well, you can decide to become an instructor. So for example, you finish your PPL, your CPL, your multi-engine, and your instrument rating, you can decide to become an instructor. And the last but not the least is the ATPL, is Airline Training Pilot License. So you don't need it in Nigeria to join the airlines, but it's one of the requirements. So you can see my epaulets, I have 2 lines here. So the third one, and there's a fourth one. The fourth one is the captain. This is for first officers. If I had a third one, it would mean that I'm a senior first officer. Like I said, if I had the fourth one, I'll be captain. In some companies, they have 2.5 for first officers. Some companies, if you have two, you're a first officer. And then the third one, like I said, is the senior first officer. So in some airlines, to have the senior first officer, you would need that ATPL license. So you don't need the ATPL to join the airlines, but as you progress in the company, you would need an ATPL. All right, and awesome. I think that's the end. That's basically all I have as regards to. I'm looking at the time here. Wow, time flies. That's what it would take for you to become a pilot in general from start to finish. Like I said, if you decide now after high school you want to become a pilot, you can definitely go for it. But the advantage in my case, for example, I'm a woman, right? So I do have a family, I'm married as well. It comes a when I want to start to have children. And I don't know if you have seen a 9 months pregnant pilot yet, but I haven't. So that means that there comes a time in your pregnancy that you can't fly. So what the airline will do is put you in a department where more likely in that department. So I could want, when I'm pregnant and I'm very well into my pregnancy, I would be put into the legal department. So that's definitely a plus to having a degree. Now that doesn't mean that you wouldn't be put, if you decide not to have a degree, you want to go. So the advantage of going straight from high school is that you join the airlines very early, assuming that you get a job right after your training. So say you finished at 18 and you finish your training at 20, at 21, you can definitely join the airline if you get employed. And so you could see yourself becoming a captain before, let's say 27, you know, depending on the company's policy and how often you fly. So that's definitely a plus for you. You're well into your career. And some people do that and then do online degrees to support, you know, the license that they have. But that's majorly it. I want to give room to questions. And I would like to hear from everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Purple. It was very interesting. So right now we're going to take questions. Send your question to the chat room. All right, I have a question for you. Should I say who is a first officer or what is a first officer?
Okay, so a first officer, let me think of something. In a cockpit, majorly we have two people. We have a captain and then we have a co-pilot. Now a co-pilot can also be a captain, but usually it's not. To be a senior first officer or a first officer. A first officer, so it's just like a hierarchy in the aviation industry. It's just we have the second officer usually, which would be at entry level of joining the airline, and then the first officer. So it depends on the company policy, but usually it depends on your hours. So say, for example, a company can say the first officer is somebody who has 1,500 hours on the plane or 500 hours on the aircraft. So basically, it's more like a numbers thing, but it differs again from company to company. But usually they are co-pilots. So basically what that means is that that first officer would be sitting on the right side of the cockpit. So it is until you have the fourth line here. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, that you can sit on the left seat. And that means that you're in command. So the full responsibility of the flights and the passengers and the crew, everybody is on the captain, but the second in command, if for any reason the captain gets incapacitated in flight, the person who takes over control of the flights will be the co-pilot, who could be a first officer or a senior first officer, as the case may be.
Okay, thank you so much. So how long does it take to become a senior first officer or a captain?
Okay, again, it depends on the company's policy,
Okay.
but it's in the numbers. So some companies can say if you have 4,500 hours on the aircraft type, you have your ATPL, and then they may do like some tests, then you can become a captain. It's the same again with say for example, senior first officer, they could say 2,500 hours on the air ATPL, but usually for the first officer, you do not need an ATPL. For the senior first officer, you need to have an ATPL, and as well as the captain, you need to have the ATPL.
All
So it's
right.
not so much it's not an age thing, it's more of your experience on the aircraft and your
Oh,
hours. Yes.
oh, okay, okay. All right, thank you. How much do first officers and let's say captains earn? So in general, how much do pilots earn?
You want to know our salary?
Yes, we would
Okay.
like to know to encourage us
Well,
now.
yes, for sure. To be honest with you, the country. So in Nigeria, the pay is okay. It depends on the airline. Um, Initial when you join the airline, so some companies will say they wouldn't pay you until some people do that until you get maybe 100 to 200 hours on the plane.
Okay.
Um, some will pay you like so I know some airlines pay you 500,000 at um before you get 500 hours in total. So this is 500 hours on the aircraft or 500 hours in total. And then after you get 500 hours, they could pay you 1.3 million naira. And then after 1.3, in addition to that, you could get duty time. So if you fly beyond the standard duty time of 40 hours, they could pay an extra amount per. So a sector is a flight from, for example, Lagos to Abuja, that's a sector. They could put an additional amount for every sector and in addition to your 40-hour standard duty time for the month. So for captains in Nigeria, you could get 2.5, 3 million. I don't know if they pay up to 4 million yet, but it depends on the type of the captain, and that's per month. Some captains, so being a captain isn't all.
Wow.
You can
This is
also,
per month.
yeah, per
Per
month.
month,
So
yes.
Wow. Okay.
is that? I don't think that's a lot. I'll say why. I don't think that's a lot of money, to be honest with you. Um, like I said, and that's not to say it's not a lot of money, but I'll explain what I'm trying to say. So yes, 4 million per month, 3.5 million per month, and some Air Force get 1.3, 1.5 on average. Senior first officers, some Air Force get 2 million actually. Yes, some first officers get 2 million. Senior first officers 2 million plus per month. And the advantage is that, so say for example, in my I think all airlines, you don't pay for, so you have a health coverage. So you don't pay for certain health things to an extent. There's a certain coverage that you get. But like I said, and in addition to being a captain, so some captain salaries differ. It depends on your position in the airline. So if you're a training captain or you're a fleet captain, so a fleet captain or a fleet manager would be the head of captains on that particular aircraft. So apart from being the captain on board that aircraft, you're the captain in charge of all the captains and pilots that fly a specific aircraft. So your salary definitely will be more than every other pilot. If you're a chief pilot, if you're a director of flight operations, your salary varies. But that's an average from, let's say, let me do a fair average of 500,000 to, yeah, give and take 4 million per month.
All right. Thank you so much. You mentioned the trainings one needs to get to become a pilot, going to aviation schools and all that. Can you be specific on how much it costs?
Oh, I actually had this, it's good you asked. So To be honest with you, the training in Nigeria is cheaper. I'll start with that off the bat. It's cheaper. I mean, especially with the exchange rate now. What the dollar was when I started my training is not what it is now. About 100 and something. I think 125 for one US dollar to Naira. But now, I mean, it's gone up to like 500. So I checked one of the flying schools and they're actually changing their cost in June. But it was also from start to finish in America, it's for 6,000 US dollars. But in Nigeria, you can finish your training with 10 million naira. So if you want to do the conversion to have an idea. And the thing is, I mean, if you live in Nigeria, you can't go from home, you have to be in school, but I mean, cost of living is definitely cheaper. But if you're doing your training in outside Nigeria, it's you would have to put into place your feeding, your accommodation, your upkeep, your health, if anything, you know, were to happen, your flight tickets and and health insurance, of course, into play. So definitely training outside Nigeria is more expensive. But yeah, that's an average of the cost. So say 10 million naira plus or minus, and then you could go up to 46,000 US dollars.
Oh, wow. Okay, thank you. You mentioned one needs in high school education to become a pilot. So now the students here, what subject do they require to study now in high school? Like maybe
Okay.
maths, physics, geography.
Okay, if you remember very clearly, I'll tell you I was in arts class.
Yes.
My brother was in science. My other sister, who is a pilot, was in commercial. And then my dad, I think my dad was in arts. My husband was in science, and we're all pilots. So it really doesn't really matter what class. You don't need to be in science class or arts class or commercial class. Now, what is the basics that you need to know are maths and English. Now, if you have an attention, say geography or science, so science definitely, not biology, of course. Maybe physics, would be a plus. But the truth is that if I was able to, so exactly good. I was studying something yesterday, and we talk about the electrical system of the aircraft. So I did Introtech. So I did Introtech in junior high school, but I didn't do anything related to Introtech in senior secondary school. So it could definitely be a plus if you already with regards to deciding about that. It doesn't really matter. It's something that you can study and understand, but it definitely is a plus if you do have that for easier comprehension.
Okay, so you're trying to say a university degree is not really compulsory. You
No,
can
it's
still,
not.
okay, okay,
Yes, my dad doesn't have a university degree.
okay. So what skills since you can go from high school, are there particular skills you require to study or to become a pilot?
Good question. So, flying is really hands-on skills, like riding a bicycle or driving a car. Your motor skills are very important, but I think these days, a lot of times, they tend to say that anybody can fly a plane. You know, you're not flying the size of an aircraft, you're flying the controls. So what we have on the Boeing 737 Classic, which is, I mean, it's a big sized aircraft. It carries about 100 plus passengers. But I'm not flying the weight of or the size of the aircraft, I'm flying the controls. So if I just lifted this aircraft, I can actually take off the aircraft because of the hydraulic system. So as far as skills are concerned, it's good to have your general motor skills, but I want to say something outside your basic skills, your leadership skills, your ability to assert yourself and communicate effectively. Now, a lot of people have, I don't know, I'll quickly talk about this. I think it's important because this is something that was, that somebody, a captain mentioned to me, and I think it would help the students. Yes, I know that they say that some people are more left-sided than right-sided. I don't know if we know what the left brain, right brain thing, what the analogy is, but basically one side of the brain takes more of your analytical, thinking, say your additions and subtractions and stuff like that, your math skills and all that. And the other side is more of your creativity and your emotional intelligence. So in addition, how do I say this now? Some of the air accidents we've had, I'll say this so that you understand the importance of what I want to say, haven't been a lack of skill, but some of them have been as a result of culture, the inability of a co-pilot to assert themselves. So I think communication is a very, very important skill. Your ability to handle pressure, your leadership skills, and your ability to build teamwork. So what we have, we call it CRM, crew resource management. So it doesn't matter if you don't get along with somebody, if you're on you have a crew and you need to work with that person, you need to exhibit teamwork. You need to be able to be pleasant, speak politely and respectfully to everyone, and accept. So not that you're just speculating, but if there's something right, you're speaking rightfully with your facts, and if there's something wrong, you need to accept that as well. So those are some skills that I think are important to have.
All right, thank you. You mentioned two types of pilots, military and civil. So I'm guessing the military pilot works with the military, Air Force, and the rest of them. Now, the civil pilots, can they also be self-employed, or they must work with known airlines?
That's another good question. Can you be self-employed? So that means you would have either your own flying club or your own airline if you're self-employed. Because how would you be earning your income if you're self-employed? I don't know if I get your question.
Okay, like
so
can a pilot be on contract? I think in this case it would be contract basis. So you work for yourself. You're not under like you work for aero contractors. Someone can be working for Dana S, but this person specifically works for himself. So maybe when they need him, let him know, something like that.
what we do have is called an ad hoc pilot. Okay. So an ad hoc pilot is a pilot who is entirely employed as a full staff in an airline. But if they do have a flight, so say for example a ferry flight, they need to fly a plane from Lagos to Banjul or to France or to Italy. I was on a flight with somebody in Ghana the other day, and he just came back from Italy. He had a ferry flight. So sometimes if you're free and you have the requirements, you can do that. The only thing I would say is that it's not it depends on your goals. You wouldn't build a lot of hours doing that. But you do have, we call them ad hoc pilots. We also have some pilots on contract. Okay. Instead of being employed for a very long duration, they could be employed for like 6 months. And then we do have people who fly private jets as well. So if you want to fly the president of our country or any country, you would have to be in the Air Force. But if you want to fly people like Rideau or anyone who has a private jet, you wouldn't be in the airline, of course. Okay. But you're still employed by that person. You just don't have like a schedule, like for example, for me, I have a schedule I have a roster. I don't go to work every day, so I'll give you exactly. Today I'm off. Today my husband's not off, or he's off. So we do have a roster. Okay. For private jets, anytime. So by 2 a.m., if they need to take off now, they need to go, you have to make yourself available. So those are the pros and cons of those kind of employments.
All right. Can a pilot fly both a plane and a helicopter? Like you now, can you fly a helicopter?
Very good question. So no, I do not fly helicopters at all. For you to fly a helicopter, you need to do another training because it's different.
Oh,
Yes, it's different from what I fly. But for for people who fly helicopters, so I have a friend or family friend who's a pilot with Bristol. He's a helicopter pilot. In the beginning of his training, he had to fly a plane first. So they started him with maybe 10 or 15 hours with the plane to learn the basics of flight, and then they switched him. And it's not just him; it's everyone who becomes a helicopter pilot. They now switch to flying the helicopter. Now you should know that the helicopter does not, so say for example, if I was going for a flight, yesterday we went up to, I think the highest altitude was 34,000 feet. The helicopter does not go anywhere close to that because of the way it's built. Also, the passengers that the helicopter carries are nowhere up to what the passengers on a fixed wing, that's what we call them, fly. So it does vary. But no, I don't fly the helicopters, no.
all right. Thank you so much. What is the retirement age for a pilot?
Very good question. I like that actually. On average, 60 to 65 years. It changes every now and then, but 60, 65. I think after 60 years, it depends on the airline again. They now put you on contract base, but I think the limit is 65. Um, I think how old? Yeah, so 60, 65 years of age, but it depends again on the airline. So we'll just say 60, 65.
Okay. Thank you. What challenges or difficulties do you face as a pilot?
I really like that question. I'll try and answer it as quickly as possible. So I said the challenges vary from person to person, and I don't mean to say this in a negative light. I've had one of the, I would say that I have been seriously challenged in, and the truth is that I take the challenges, I think it was actually for my good. I wouldn't have realized the strengths. I don't think challenges are negative things. I think they're actually plus. You don't get celebrated for doing things that are ordinary. So I mean, if it was something that I could do, it wouldn't be a really big deal. I faced a lot of challenges from the beginning. I would say from training. So for training, my first challenge was culture and weather. So I started my training in Canada, and it was definitely a different environment from what I was used to. Another challenge, being a woman. So I was in being a woman, and I think initially I was very quiet. So I didn't used to be. I could fly. I could study. I would pass my exams and all of that. But when it came to exhibiting what I could do, a lot of times, and I think it's just natural, the industry is very competitive, and the majority of my classmates, so in my set, for example, I was the only girl. In my set, my class was in addition to the Air Force. So all of the guys in the all the people in the Air Force in my set were all guys, but in my particular class as a civilian, because it was a combined class, I was the only girl, and then there were two other guys. And I think because it's a naturally competitive industry, the guys will definitely want to, hey, this is no this to all the guys on here. With all due respect, the guys are naturally competitive. But when there's a girl there, I had to, I wouldn't say I had to, I had to bring out a different side of me, but there were challenges of certain things that I couldn't be girly. Let me put it that way. I couldn't be girly.
Fantastic. All right, I have one question. How can the job of a pilot impact family life?
Oh, very good question. It does impact family life. It could be an addition, it could be I think the main thing is understanding. So in my case, I have somebody who's also a pilot, so he does understand that. I mean, yesterday I woke up as early as 4 a.m. So my reporting was 5:45 a.m. and that was one of my interview questions. So they asked me if I needed to report to work at 3 a.m. Being a woman, would I have any issues with that? I said, even if you called me by 2 a.m., I'll be there. I need to get the job done. But like I said, I had to go to work, and this is me and my family, so I'll use my family as an example. I had to go to work, leave the house before 5 to report for 5:45 a.m. But my husband had to be at work at, I think 9 or 10. Now, I got back from work by, let's say 2, and then he got back from work by 7, 8. And then today he had to go to work early, and then I'm off today. So that we do have a lot of time today. Like tomorrow, for example, we're both off. So we have the day to ourselves tomorrow. And a couple of days in the week, we have offs together. So we do have times where the whole day we have it to ourselves. But then there's an understanding. So sometimes if, for example, I have to night stop in Abuja, he understands that that's what comes with the profession. And I have to be where. Yes.
All right, thank you so much. We're about to round up. So the one of the questions I have before we round up is, what do you love most and least about your job?
Good question to end the day. I love wearing this uniform. Anytime I'm in the mirror looking at myself in this uniform, I'm looking at myself right now, I must say, it's the sense of fulfillment. Like I said yesterday, I got teary-eyed because this was something that started as a dream, as a vision, and despite the challenges that I have faced, I'm here today, and that's what keeps me going, you know. It's the sense of fulfillment that I'm where I am today. But it's also an opportunity to inspire the generation that is coming after me. I know that it was seeing somebody who had achieved his own goals inspire me that led to me becoming who I am today. So the opportunity to do that to the next generation is definitely one of the pros. The cons, the inevitable challenges, you know, there are challenges that come with every profession. So it could be office politics. There's been some cases of bullying and intimidation. You just have to learn your way around. Yes, there's been that. Office politics, bullying and intimidation, misuse of power. So you need to learn to handle that effectively. Those are the cons that come with the profession. But yeah, the salary is not bad too.
Okay, thank you so much. Last question. What advice do you have for students who want to be future pilots? And also, what advice do you have for parents who their kids want to be pilots in future?
Start with the pilots. With the students. You're
Students,
saying
yeah.
sorry. Students. No, actually, let me start with the parents. Sorry, let me start with the parents.
Okay.
Parents, if any of your children, I'll use my mom. 3 of her children plus her son-in-law are pilots, and a lot of people be saying, "Oh, how can you do it? What if this happens? What if that happens?" If that's what the child really wants to do, support that child, whatever it takes to make it a reality. Because when the time comes, when the celebration comes, you know, it's one of the greatest things to have a pilot and the person on board is maybe a mother or a father. It's one of the greatest things that could happen. It's very fulfilling. So I definitely encourage any parents to support and believe in your child to achieve that goal. For the students, you need to be very focused and disciplined. You need to be focused like never before. You think doctors read? I mean, they do read, but you're going to be reading and you're going to be reading for life. We do these things called uh, so it's called the simulator training. So every 6 months, I have to travel out of the country because we don't do it in Nigeria to do what we call simulator training. And a simulator training is where you go into something that looks like a plane. It's a simulator, and then you simulate emergencies. So you can simulate an engine failure or anything that could possibly happen that you normally not have, so that you're better prepared. So what I would say for the students: be focused, disciplined, diligent. Don't do drugs, don't do alcohol, please.
Sorry, I have a question. I have a question. Actually, you just reminded me, the drugs. So the alcohol, are you saying that pilots cannot drink alcohol at all? Like even when they are not flying?
Oh, no. So if you're not flying, so we have this rule called 8 hours bottle to throttle. Means is that you can't have alcohol in your system 8 hours before your flight. So if if you do casually drink, that's fine, but just ensure that you do not have any form of alcohol in the system.
Miss Soluzo, is that okay?
8 hours before the flight. That's the general rule.
All right, thank you so much, ma'am. Okay, one last question before we round up. Where in the next 5 to, or should I say 10 to 20 years, where do you see this career, like being a pilot? Will it still be relevant? Is it still going to be that big a deal to be a pilot?
Or will robots take over?
Yes, or would, like, we have autopilots now.
Robots?
Yes.
Who say robots then? Please. I don't think even as a pilot, would allow a robot to fly me. No, I don't think that's going to work in any way. It's too risky. It's way too risky. But where do I see the industry going forward? There's going to be a lot of expansion. So what we're having now, we have a lot of expansion going on, especially in Nigeria. A lot of airlines are coming up, and I think that's what's going to be happening worldwide. A lot of people. So for me, for example, I want to fly international. That's one of my goals. So over time, I'll be moving towards that. But there's always going to be the need for people to accept somebody comes up with the ability to teleport, and I don't think that's going to happen. So there's always going to be the need to commute or transport people from one country to the other. So the industry is definitely good.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ma'am. It was a lovely session. I'm afraid of heights personally, so I don't think I can ever be a pilot, but I know a lot of students and parents here are inspired. Thank you so much for taking out time today. I know you must have a busy schedule, and we appreciate. Dr. Wilson, please.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I want to really thank our guests today. This was a phenomenal session. Thank you for taking the time to explain everything that we need to know. I think you've encouraged so many people to really look at, becoming a pilot, taking flight lessons. And I want everyone to think about this. Your career is going to be fantastic, and you never know where you're going to end up. One of the things that you may want to consider is taking flight lessons just for your own well-being. I have a friend who's pretty wealthy. He's taken some flight lessons. He has his own Cessna plane, and I asked him, well, why do you have your own plane? Why did you get your license? And he said, simply to save time. He has to get from place to place. He doesn't want to deal with the whole airport thing. He goes to a private, airport where planes are. He hops on his plane. He does all the clearance, and then he takes off when he gets there. So certainly, if you're listening to this call and you're a Green Springs student, then you are going to have that type of wealth in your future. So think about taking it as an additional resource, just like having a real estate license, just like having a broker's license. Have your pilot's license. There's nothing restricting you from taking lessons. When we open up the Air and Sea Laboratory, you'll see that we already have flight simulation packages and the equipment already in the room. Take the time to join those labs, go in and learn how to fly a plane. If you have a computer at home, which I know you do, you can buy some peripheral devices and you can buy a flight simulation package for your home usage. Look at Microsoft Flight Simulator or any of the simulation packages that are out there. You know, most people, and I'm sure our guests will tell you, you can learn almost enough simply by playing on your flight simulation package. Once you log in, every airport in the world is already in that flight package. Every route is already in those packages. You'll learn how to take off and land. You'll learn how to do a touch and go. You'll learn how to do a lot of things that you'll need to learn. You know, you'll know a lot and you'll still need to get those flight hours in once you take, you know, your lessons. But look at where in the world can I take my lessons? I think I heard our speaker say that she took lessons in Ilorin and also in Canada. I know that in the US, there are many, many really good flight schools, including the community colleges. So take these opportunities seriously. You know, you are going to be globally aware. Your job will require you to work in several countries. I'm telling you, your job will require you to work in several countries. So give yourself more options. Take everything that you heard today at heart and look into it. Take what I just said about getting your own flight simulation package and just simply, you know, some of it's freeware so you can download it, but buy those peripheral devices. If your parents have an Amazon account, you can order those things through Amazon. So again, I want to thank our speaker on behalf of Mrs. Quakey, on behalf of myself and the entire senior leadership team at Green Spring School. For all the parents who are on board with us today, know that these career workshops are not only for the children, but they're also for adults. We have some really, really good ones ahead of us, and this has been a phenomenal year already. So I want to thank our College, Career, and University Readiness Center, Mrs. Ibe, Ms. Nkenta, also Ms. Saluzzo. I want to thank Ms. Okoye and the IB program. Green Spring School is the #1 school for a reason. It's programs like this that matter and make a difference. So let's stay strong and love, serve one another. Thank you.